A lot of you have asked about how to sew darts on garments, and I'm going to show you today my favorite way to mark them and sew them. To mark your pattern, I like to use the tracing paper and a marking wheel, which works really well for marking darts. You could also use one of these chalk pens that has a really fine line, and chalk comes out of this little roller. You'll need scissors and pins also for this. Pins are really important for getting your darts matched up accurately. One of my favorite ways to mark darts is with the tracing paper, and you'll want to have the wrong side of your fabric facing out. So the right side would be on the inside here. I have a fabric that's the right side and the wrong side are the same, but you want to have your wrong side out when you're marking your darts. And one of my favorite ways is to use this tracing paper, and you can just put it under the bottom layer of your pattern with your, I trace all of my patterns onto Swedish tracing paper, which I find it's really helpful. You can save your original pattern, and then you have a pattern that you can go back to if you make any adjustments, which this one, I did make a bunch of adjustments, so it's nice to have this to use again. You'll also need a straight edge as well. You'll put your tracing paper underneath the bottom of your pattern piece, and then with your straight edge, you'll just run the roller right along that dart line. So now you can see on the bottom of my pattern, I can see really clearly where I'm going to fold that dart. If you don't have the tracing paper, another way that's really easy is to snip into just barely into the edge of your pattern, right at those lines of the dart, and then take a pin and poke it into the point of the dart and fold your pattern piece back. Then you can take your marking tool and just mark a little T right at the point of that dart so you know where it is. Then taking away your pattern, you can mark where those notches are. And take your straight edge and draw in the dart lines. And I'm doing this on the wrong side of my fabric. So both of those tools work really great for marking your darts. Then when you're getting ready to fold your darts, you're going to need your pins. To pin my dart, I'm going to start by putting one pin going in the direction of the line of the dart, right at the edge here. And I'll do that for both legs of the dart. Then I'm going to, this is the wrong side of my fabric. I'm going to pinch the center of the dart up and bring those pins together. Make sure they're really matching up with each other, which means my lines are matching up with each other. I'll take one of them out, and then using the other one, I'm going to pin those two legs of the dart together. I'm holding them in place so they don't shift. And then the two legs of my dart have been pinned together with a fold on the wrong side facing out. Then for the point of the dart, I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to try and fold it right along that point going towards the center of the dart. And I will take a pin and put it right into that point of the dart. And then I'm going to go perpendicular to the fold and pin that fold together. Now finally, to match the legs of the dart along the center of the dart, I'm going to take another pin, go into one of the lines of the legs, and then on the other side, I'm going to make sure it comes out directly through the other line on the leg. And if you need to shift it, you can pull the pin a little bit out again of that top layer and keep it in the bottom layer, and just make sure it's going right into that leg of the dart. Then go down following the line of that leg and pin back into it. And make sure when it comes out the other side, it's coming out of the leg on the other side. And that's gonna hold your dart from shifting as you sew it. Now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine. Most people, when they sew darts, they tell you not to backstitch at the point of your dart. And that's really important to make it nice and clean at the point of your dart. A lot of people tie their strings at the end, but that's not what I do. What I do is use the stitch length on the sewing machine to bind off those stitches just with the machine itself. So what I do is I start by putting my machine onto a really short stitch length. Like on this machine, I'll use a 1. And I'm gonna take out, I pin this to the front side so it's easier to take that pin out. I'll take out my first pin, and I'm starting at the seam edge of my dart, the end of my legs. And I'm going to line my needle right up on that line that I drew on there. So I'll take my first pin out, and then with my machine on this short stitch length, I'm going to line my needle up right with that chalk line and go ahead and do about a 1/2 inch of stitches with it on the really short stitch length. Then I can switch my machine to a regular stitch length. I'm gonna do 2, which is like not too long, but not too short. And then continue for most of the dart. And as I get towards the point of the dart, which I have my pin here, I'm gonna curve a little bit to the inside of that line because I want to round out the point of the dart. And then I'm going to switch my machine back to a short stitch length and sort of curve along this edge to where I end up sewing right along the fold and then stopping at that point. I'm going to take that pin out because I've got my chalk mark I can see, and I don't want the pin to mess up my stitching. And then just sort of sew off of your fold right at that edge, at that point. And with that short stitch length, it will have locked in those last few stitches of your dart, and you can kind of see the curve of the dart going towards following along the fold and then stopping. Then I can cut this and go ahead and press my dart. To press your dart, just go ahead and press it down towards the bottom of your garment. And I kind of like to pull a little bit on my fabric so that that dart is pressed nice and crisp and the seam opens up all the way. That point, the dart is giving a 3-dimensional shape to it. You want to use the point of your iron and kind of go towards the top of the dart and press it down. And then it gives you a nice, smooth point to your dart. And that's it. You can finish sewing your garment.